As the story begins, we see a girl tied to a pillar. She had been kidnapped. When the kidnapper approached her, she started crying, begging for her life. "Please let me go. I'll give you as much money as you want." But the kidnapper coldly replied, "Shut up. I don't want money. It's your blood and your body that I crave." Saying this, he untied her and dragged her into another room, where he tied her to a chair. Then, he brought in her unconscious boyfriend and placed him in front of her. The girl pleaded once more, "Please let us go," in a fit of rage. The kidnapper shouted, "You don't get it. I don't need money. I'm doing all this for my daughter." The girl, still desperate, said, "I can give your daughter whatever she needs. I'll cover all her medical expenses. Just let us go." But the man coldly replied, "Your money can't save my daughter, because she's already dead. Now, to bring her back, I'll offer both of your corpses to Satan. In return, he'll give me my daughter back." As he said this, a strange living doll appeared in front of them. The sight of it terrified the girl, leaving her speechless. The kidnapper tapped Minnie's boyfriend's mouth and began chanting some spells. Holding a bizarre knife, he stabbed it into the boy's body. The blood started pouring out, which he began collecting in a glass. Seeing this, the girl couldn't bear it anymore. She struggled to free herself, and as soon as her hands were untied, she ran away. But where could she go? It was a deserted island. She ran until she was exhausted. As she stopped to catch her breath, she sensed someone behind her. When she turned around, Satan was standing there. He grabbed her and took her back to the farmhouse. The kidnapper tied her up again. After finishing his ritual, he went back to his lounge and turned on the TV. There, a documentary was playing. It was by Zoe, a filmmaker who made documentaries about strange and bizarre places around the world. Her team consisted of 6 members, all of whom loved exploring new places. Among them was Dory, the youngest, who managed their social media. At that moment, Dory handed Zoe some emails, one of which caught her attention. It was an invitation. Someone was inviting Zoe and her team to an island known for terrifying stories. Excited by the prospect of such an interesting project, Zoe and her entire team started preparing to visit the island for their next documentary. The scene cuts back to the island, where the kidnapper approached the girl again. This time she was crying, knowing that the man would show no mercy. But to her surprise, the kidnapper began apologizing. "Forgive me," he said. "I'm sorry for all the pain I've caused you." The girl was stunned, but before she could fully trust him, the kidnapper grabbed her head and snapped her neck, killing her instantly. Finally, the scene shows Zoe and her team making their preparations to head to the island. Arranging for a boat was no easy task. It was surprising that every boatman they talked to refused to go to that island. After a long search, they finally found a boatman who agreed to take them, but he demanded a lot of money. Fortunately, money wasn't an issue for them, so they paid and headed to the island. Upon arriving, everything seemed perfect at first. The island was beautiful and green, with pleasant weather that made them feel happy. However, they were unaware of the dangers hidden behind this beauty. As they moved forward, strange things started to appear. They noticed dolls hanging in different places all over the island. The boatman dropped them off and pointed the way to the farmhouse, saying, "From here on, you're on your own." They found this a bit odd, but they were too excited about making the documentary to worry. The sight of the hanging dolls fascinated them, so Zoe decided to start filming the documentary right there. Behind them, the boatman was now heading back alone. As he walked, an unsettling fear crept up inside him, as if someone was following him. The hanging dolls seemed to be staring at him. Feeling this eerie presence, he started to run. Suddenly, Satan, the doll from the stories he had heard, appeared in front of him. Terrified, he pleaded, "Please let me go. I was only here to drop them off. Take their lives if you must, but spare mine." But Satan didn't listen. Grabbing his face, she snapped his neck, killing him instantly. The scene cuts back to Zoe, who was explaining the history of the island. There was once a man on this island whose daughter died. Losing her drove him mad, and he hung dolls all over the island. He believed his daughter's spirit would be trapped inside one of the dolls, and in this way he could meet her again and again. Next, we see Veronica, one of the team members, wandering alone when she spots a house nearby. She calls out to the rest of the team to join her. The house looked normal, like it belonged to any regular person. But something strange happened. The door opened by itself, as if inviting them in. Zoe thought it must be Julian's house, the man who had written to them and invited them to the island. She entered, calling out, "Julian, Julian, Julian." But there was no response, so they all went inside. The interior of the house seemed quite normal, though they had expected something more frightening. They decided to shoot the second part of the documentary inside the house. Zoe began speaking, and the cameraman started recording. While filming, the cameraman suddenly noticed Satan sitting on the couch right behind Zoe. Terrified, he stopped the recording and informed the others. The whole team was now on edge. But just then, Julian appeared from behind, startling everyone. His sudden arrival was unexpected, but he quickly calmed them down, welcoming them to the island. It was now night, and Julian set up a bonfire for them, sharing stories as they gathered around. He told them how many people used to visit the island, and at first he thought they came to share in his grief. But as time passed, he realized they were only there for entertainment, not to comfort him. That's when he stopped allowing visitors to come to the island. Julian now tells Zoe, "I brought your team here so you could tell the world that my daughter didn't die." Hearing this, everyone sitting around was shocked, wondering what Julian meant. Julian continues, "My daughter didn't die. Her soul is still on this island, but her body isn't. I hang dolls all over the island in her memory, so her spirit can find peace and stay with the dolls." After finishing his story, Julian advises them, "It gets cold at night on this island. You should sleep with blankets. If you want, you can stay at my place." But the team declines, with Zoe telling him, "Actually, we need to capture some night shots, and we don't want to disturb you. We'll be fine in our tents." Julian heads back to his house, and everyone else retreats to their tents. A couple from the group, however, sneaks off to the basement of a nearby farmhouse to spend the night. As they try to sleep, they hear laughter coming from outside. At first they think it's Veronica and Tori trying to prank them, but before they can process what's happening, Satan appears right in front of them. Without warning, she attacks the man, killing him instantly. His wife, terrified, screams loudly, and within seconds, Satan kills her too. Meanwhile, Veronica and Tori were exploring the island, noticing many dolls hanging around. Tori believed there was some real paranormal activity going on, and that this wasn't just a scary story. But Veronica refused to accept this, leading to an argument between them. Angrily, Veronica leaves Tori behind on the island and returns to camp alone. Tori, now alone, goes to Zoe, who was writing the script. It was freezing, and Tori didn't have a blanket. She tells Zoe, "I'm going to Julian's house to get a blanket." As she neared his house, she accidentally made some noise, causing Julian to come outside. Tori explains that she just came to get a blanket. Hearing this, Julian invites her inside, offers her a drink, and they start talking. Curious, Tori asks, "Can I ask what happened to your daughter?" After a pause, Julian begins, "One day, my two daughters were playing together." But before he could finish, Zoe, in shock, interrupts, "Two daughters? You had another daughter." Julian's demeanor changes, and he slams his hand on the table angrily, saying, "Go, I don't want to talk about it." His sudden outburst scares Zoe. Realizing his mistake, Julian quickly apologizes, "I'm sorry. This is all very emotional for me. I can't keep repeating these memories. It hurts. Maybe my pain made me lash out in anger." Zoe, understanding his emotions, reassures him, "It's okay." Julian gives her the blanket, and Zoe returns to her camp to sleep. Later that night, as Zoe sleeps, we see someone creep up behind her. They grab her head and snap her neck, killing her instantly. Suddenly, Zoe's eyes open. It was all just a nightmare. She had dreamed that Satan killed her. Terrified, she sits up and sees that it's morning. Her other team members are already awake and waiting for her. However, the two members of the group who had snuck off the previous night were still missing. The rest of the team assumed their absence was due to their usual irresponsible behavior, unaware of what had actually happened to them. They decide to start working, but Zoe wasn't feeling right about it. She was worried that the missing team members might be in some kind of trouble and suggested they should go search for them. Hearing this, her partner responds, "Okay, fine. Tori and I are going to continue with the shoot. You two go and find them." Now, Tori had gone with the girl to Julian's house, which was locked. Julian himself was in the woods, standing in front of a tree with a green-dressed doll hanging from it. He was staring at the doll and smiling strangely. The doll seemed to smile back at him. Meanwhile, Tori and the other guy had managed to unlock Julian's house. They went inside and started waiting for Julian. When he didn't return for a long time, the guy set up the shooting equipment and sat down on the sofa. There, he noticed many pictures on the table. As he flipped through them, he was shocked to find a picture of Tori. His mind started racing, and he realized they had been brought here according to some plan. Tori was the one who had given Zoe the invitation letter. Before he could confront Tori about this, she confessed, "I am Julian's daughter." Without warning, she struck the man's head with a heavy object, killing him instantly. Just then, Julian entered and praised Tori for her work, saying, I'm proud of you. Both my daughter and I are very happy." The scene now shifts to show Rona and Zoe, who were in the woods searching for their missing teammates. They started arguing about something, and as they were in the middle of the argument, Satan appeared before them. Rona initially thought it was some kind of joke and started laughing, but her laughter quickly faded when Zoe told her, "This is Satan, the one from my nightmare last night. If we want to survive, we need to run." Both of them started running, but Zoe saw a shortcut and called out to Rona, telling her to follow. However, Rona didn't listen, and the two got separated. While Zoe was running, Julian suddenly appeared behind her, covered her mouth with a cloth, and knocked her unconscious. Meanwhile, Rona took refuge inside an old house. Little did she know that the bodies of their two missing teammates were already inside that very house. Seeing their corpses, Rona was horrified. Before she could process anything, Satan appeared behind her and struck her on the head, knocking her out as well. When Rona and Zoe regained consciousness, they found themselves in Julian's house. Seeing the dead body of their other teammate, Zoe was devastated and realized that coming to this place was the worst decision she had ever made. All her friends were dead, but then they saw Tori, alive and well. They were shocked to see her unharmed. Tori smirked and said, "Don't be surprised. I'm the one who brought you here." She then showed them childhood pictures of herself with Julian. In the photos, Satan was also present. Hearing all of this, Rona cursed Tori, but Tori quickly put a knife to her throat. Seeing this, Zoe begged for mercy, pleading, "Please don't kill us." Tori, however, revealed, "Your lives can't be spared now because Satan has taken a liking to your bodies. You are going to die, and your sacrifice will be the greatest gift to Satan." As they were talking, Julian arrived and said, "I'm sorry, but we have to kill you because your death will help us." Satan was pleased. They started by injuring Veronica and Zoe, collecting their blood in a bowl, while chanting some spells, those same spells Julian had spoken at the beginning of the movie. Now, they needed to mix the blood of all the dead people together. When Tori approached Veronica to collect her blood, Veronica bit Tori's hand so hard that it started bleeding. Tori's blood mixed with the rest, ruining the ritual. Seeing this, Julian panicked. To fix the ritual, he decided to gather all the other bodies. Meanwhile, Zoe saw an opportunity, broke free, and ran away. Julian chased her through the fields, but Zoe managed to outsmart him and reached an old house where the bodies of her teammates were kept. Julian followed her there too, but this time, Zoe had the advantage of hiding and ambushing him. As soon as Julian appeared, Zoe grabbed a steel rod lying nearby and struck him, killing him. Right after, Tori arrived and was devastated to find her father dead. Before she could do anything to Zoe, Zoe struck and killed her too. Zoe, however, broke down into tears, realizing that everything she had done was not of her own free will, it was the work of the evil forces controlling her. As she was thinking about all this, Satan suddenly appeared in front of her. Grabbing Zoe by the throat, Satan killed her and completed the ritual. After mixing everyone's blood, Satan transformed into a human body. In the final scene, we see Satan now living alone on the island. Zoe and her entire team had been killed, and Satan was waiting for more innocent people like them to fulfill its evil desires. And with this, the story comes to an end.